A dedicated nanny cares for a lonely boy in a house that seems perfect from the outside. But a scream from the bedroom reveals the dark secret that Mansion was hiding. Faced with the stepmother's cruel abuse, she risks everything to protect the child. What begins as an act of courage turns into a journey of justice, love, and redemption.
If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching us from. We continue. The sun beat down on the tree-lined avenue of Regent's Park Gardens, an affluent district of London, when Isabella Cordell stepped out of the taxi. She adjusted her simple bag on her shoulder and observed the imposing two-story house in front of her. Tall, ornate iron gates, an immaculate garden, and a facade that exuded power and money. The 24-year-old took a deep breath, trying to control her nervousness. This would be her new workplace, and possibly her last chance. "It's going to be fine," she murmured to herself, pressing the doorbell. An elegant woman opened the door. Perfectly styled blonde hair in a bob cut, flawless makeup, and a dress Isabella recognized as designer. Victoria Monroe, the new wife of Roderick Alistair, one of the most influential businessmen in the British real estate market. "You must be Isabella," Victoria said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Come in. Roderick is in his office, finishing a call. He'll be down in a moment." Isabella followed Victoria into the mansion. The marble gleamed under her feet, and every piece of decoration seemed to have been chosen with calculated precision. Nothing out of place, a magazine-worthy home. "Peter's room is upstairs," Victoria explained, referring to Roderick's son from his first marriage. "He's 6 years old, and, let's just say, he's a child who requires special attention." Something in Victoria's tone made Isabella frown. But before she could dwell on it, a tall man came down the stairs. Roderick Alistair had presence. Graying hair at his temples, a well-tailored suit, and a tired but kind gaze. "Isabella, welcome," he greeted, extending his hand. "I hope Victoria has already shown you around the house." "We were just starting the tour," Victoria replied quickly. "Excellent. Let's go to the office to discuss the job details. And then you can meet Peter." In the office, Isabella sat before Roderick, who explained the family situation. "My ex-wife, Lucy, moved to New York 6 months ago. A family health issue. Peter hasn't adapted well to the change. He was very attached to his mother." Roderick paused, choosing his words. "Our divorce was 2 years ago, but I only recently remarried to Victoria. We're all still adjusting." Isabella nodded as Roderick continued. "Peter is different. Before, he was cheerful, talkative. Now he's withdrawn, doesn't want to go to school, has nightmares. The psychologist suggests he needs a constant figure, someone other than me and Victoria. That's why I hired you." "I understand perfectly," Isabella said. "Children feel changes very deeply. I promise to do my best for Peter." Roderick's face softened with gratitude. "Shall we go meet him?" They went up to the boys' room. As they entered, Isabella saw a thin boy with brown hair and large eyes sitting on the rug, drawing. When the door opened, he looked up for an instant and then quickly returned to his activity. "Peter, this is Isabella. She'll take care of you when I can't be here." The boy didn't respond. Isabella approached slowly and sat on the floor at a respectful distance. "Hi, Peter. What are you drawing?" Silence. Isabella didn't insist. She observed the drawing. A house, an adult figure on one side, a small one on the other, separated by a large black line. "May I sit here and watch you draw?" she asked softly. Peter shrugged, a reluctant yes. Roderick, sensing the opening, smiled gratefully at Isabella. "I'll leave you two to get acquainted. I'll be downstairs if you need anything." When they were alone, Isabella didn't try to force conversation. She just sat there, in respectful silence. After a few minutes, Peter pushed a sheet of paper and some pencils towards her, a silent invitation. "May I draw with you?" "Thank you," she said, picking up a green pencil. In the days that followed, Isabella established a routine with Peter. She discovered that, despite his silence, the boy was observant and intelligent. When Roderick was present, Peter was a little more open. But when Victoria entered the room, the boy completely shut down. One afternoon, while Isabella was organizing toys with Peter, Victoria appeared at the door. "Bath time, Peter," she announced in a firm tone. The boy clung to Isabella's leg, his eyes suddenly filled with fear. "I can give him his bath," Isabella offered, noticing the child's reaction. "No need." Victoria walked over to them and firmly held Peter's arm. "Come on, brat. We don't have all day." Peter began to cry silently. Isabella felt an alarm bell ring inside her. "Victoria, I think he prefers me to come along." "You don't decide that," Victoria cut her off, pulling the boy. "He needs to learn to obey." Isabella watched as Peter was dragged to the bathroom. The door closed, but not completely. Through the crack, she saw Victoria leaning over the boy, whispering something. Peter's face was pure terror. That night, Isabella couldn't sleep. Something was wrong in that house. Very wrong. And she needed to find out what. The next morning, she found Peter at breakfast. Roderick had already left for work, and Victoria was in her room. The boy ate in silence, head bowed. When Isabella sat beside him, he looked up. It was then that she noticed a purple mark, partially hidden by his pajama collar. "Peter, what happened here?" she asked, her heart racing. The boy quickly pulled his collar up, eyes wide. "If I tell," she said, "my mummy will never come back," he whispered, so low Isabella barely heard him. At that moment, Isabella understood everything, and she knew she couldn't stay silent. The following days were an exercise in observation for Isabella. Every move Victoria made, every reaction from Peter, every detail could confirm her suspicions. She began to notice patterns. Whenever Roderick left for work, Victoria changed completely. The mask of a devoted wife dropped, revealing a cold and impatient woman. One morning, while playing in the garden, Peter finally began to open up to Isabella. "Auntie Isa, are you leaving too?" The question caught Isabella by surprise. "Why do you think I'm leaving, Peter?" "Auntie Martha left, and Auntie Regina. All the nannies leave." Isabella sat on the grass, leveling her gaze with the boys. "I'm not planning on going anywhere, Peter, I promise." The boys stared at her with distrust. Those 6-year-old eyes had already seen Victoria said it's because I'm a bad boy. Isabella's heart ached. "Peter, you are not a bad boy." "Not at all." "Then why does she hurt me?" The confession came so naturally that Isabella almost gasped. Peter looked at his own hands, avoiding her eyes. "How does she hurt you, Peter?" Isabella asked, trying to keep her voice calm, despite the anger that was beginning to grow inside her. "Pinches, when no one is looking, and sometimes ... double quotes." He hesitated, pulling up his shirt sleeve, revealing purple marks on his small arms. "When I cry, she squeezes hard." Isabella fought back tears. Carefully, she took out her phone and took pictures of the marks. "Have you told your dad?" Peter shook his head. She said, "If I tell, my mummy will never be able to see me again. And that my daddy will be mad at me and send me to boarding school." A knot formed in Isabella's throat. It was a classic pattern of abuse, isolating the victim, threatening, creating fear. She had studied this in her education degree, but seeing it happen there, to a child she had grown to care for so much, was devastating. Peter, what she does is wrong. Very wrong. No one has the right to hurt you, ever. But she's my stepmom now. She said she can do whatever she wants because she's like my mummy. Isabella held the boy's small hands. No, Peter. Not even your real mummy would have that right. No one can hurt you. A noise at the door made them both turn. Victoria stood there, her eyes narrowed and her face tense. "What are you two talking about so much?" she asked, approaching. "Peter, go wash your hands for lunch." The boy looked at Isabella, frightened, before getting up and running into the house. When they were alone, Victoria turned to Isabella, all pretense of cordiality gone. "You're getting very close to the boy, don't you think? Remember your place, you're just a servant here." Isabella stood up, meeting her gaze. "I am responsible for Peter's well-being when his parents are not around. His well-being is Roderick's and my problem. You're here to follow orders, nothing more. If his well-being includes bruises on his arms, then we have a serious problem." Victoria's face paled for a second before she recomposed herself. "What are you talking about? The boy is clumsy, always falling. Children fall, yes, but they don't get finger marks on their arms when they fall." Victoria took a step forward, her voice low and menacing. "Be careful what you're implying, Isabella. You have no idea who you're messing with. Roderick would never believe you over me, and you need this job, don't you? I heard you have a sick mother to support. ... Isabella's blood ran cold. How did Victoria know about her mother? Had someone investigated her past? "Don't threaten me, Victoria. What I've seen goes beyond any intimidation. I'd like to see you prove anything," Victoria sneered. "Peter won't talk. And even if he did, it's the word of a confused child against mine. Who do you think Roderick will choose? The new nanny or his wife?" Before Isabella could reply, the sound of a car parking interrupted the conversation. Roderick had returned for lunch, something rare in his routine. Victoria quickly transformed her expression, the smile returning to her face as if a switch had been flicked. "We'll continue this conversation later. Remember your place." As Victoria walked into the house, Isabella remained in the garden, trembling, not from fear, but from anger and determination. That woman was underestimating her. During lunch, the tension was palpable, at least for Isabella. Victoria perfectly played the role of the devoted stepmother, serving Peter with false sweetness. The boy responded in monosyllables, his eyes downcast, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Roderick seemed too tired to notice anything amiss. "How are things, Isabella? Is Peter adapting well to you?" Roderick asked between bites. Before Isabella could answer, Victoria intervened. "They're getting along wonderfully. In fact, I was just telling Peter that Isabella seems more like a friend than a nanny." The tone was complimentary, but the look of Victoria shot Isabella was a clear warning. "Stay in line." "Peter is an amazing child," Isabella replied, looking directly at Roderick. "I'd like to speak with you later, if possible, about his routine." Roderick nodded, distracted. Of course. I have an important meeting this afternoon, but we can talk tonight." Isabella noticed Victoria watching her intently. The threat was clear, but Isabella knew she couldn't back down. Peter's well-being depended on her courage. After lunch, Roderick left for the office again, and Victoria announced that she was going to the beauty salon. When they were alone, Peter clung to Isabella. "Don't tell her what I told you, please." Isabella knelt down, leveling her gaze with the boy's. "Peter, what she does to you is wrong. Your dad needs to know. She'd take me away. She'll say I lied. I won't let that happen. I promise. Isabella hugged him, feeling his small body tremble. Do you trust me? After a moment of hesitation, Peter nodded. Then help me keep a diary, just the two of us. Every time something hurts you or makes you sad, we'll write it down. It can be our secret for now. Peter seemed to consider the idea, like a detective's diary. Isabella smiled, relieved by the spark of interest in the boy's eyes. Exactly. We'll be detectives together that afternoon. They started the secret diary. Peter drew each situation in which Victoria had hurt him, and Isabella helped him write down the dates and what had happened. With each page, her heart tightened more. Some incidents dated back months, long before her arrival. When he finished the last page, Peter seemed exhausted, but also relieved, as if a weight had been lifted from his small shoulders. Auntie Isa, do you think my dad will believe us? The question hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Isabella couldn't guarantee anything, but she knew she needed to give that child hope. Your dad loves you very much, Peter. He'll want you to be safe and happy. That's what we need to believe. That night, when putting Peter to sleep, Isabella overheard Victoria and Roderick arguing in the next room. She couldn't distinguish the words, only the tense tone. Minutes later, Roderick knocked softly on Peter's bedroom door. Is he asleep yet? Almost, Isabella replied, covering the boy who was pretending to sleep, but listening intently. Can we talk now? Victoria told me you had concerns about Peter. Isabella felt a chill. Victoria was getting ahead of her, trying to control the narrative. Yes, we need to talk. But not here. They went down to the office. Isabella took a deep breath, knowing that what she was about to say could change everything, for better or for worse. In Roderick's office, Isabella sat tensely on the edge of the chair. Through the window, the London night sparkled with thousands of lights, contrasting with the darkness that hung over that house. So what did you want to tell me about Peter? Roderick asked, pouring himself a glass of whiskey. Isabella took a deep breath. It was now or never. Mr. Alistair, what I'm about to say is very serious, and I ask you to listen until the end. She paused, gathering courage. I have reason to believe that Peter is being physically mistreated when you are not home. Roderick froze with the glass halfway to his mouth. What? What are you talking about? Peter has finger marks on his arms, bruises in different stages of healing. He is terrified in Victoria's presence, and today he told me she hurts him regularly. Roderick's face went from surprise to disbelief, and then to anger. That's a very serious accusation, Isabella. Are you sure about what you're saying? In response, Isabella took out her phone and showed him the photo she had taken of Peter's arms. These are recent marks, and there are older ones too. Roderick examined the images, his face growing paler. That ... that doesn't prove it was Victoria. Peter could have hurt himself playing, or, he told me, Mr. Alistair. He told me she pinches him and squeezes him when no one is looking, that she threatens him, saying if he tells, he'll never see his mother again. Roderick ran a hand through his hair, visibly disturbed. Why didn't Peter tell me this? Because he's scared. Victoria convinced him that you wouldn't believe him, that you'd be angry and send him away. A heavy silence fell over the office. Roderick seemed to be processing the information, struggling internally. Do you have any more proof besides these photos and what Peter told you? Isabella hesitated for a moment before revealing the existence of the diary. Peter and I kept a record, dates, drawings, descriptions of the incidents. Some date back to before my arrival. I want to see that diary. It's hidden in his room. I can get it tomorrow when the office's door burst open. Victoria stood there, her face contorted in a mask of indignation. So this is what you're doing behind my back? Poisoning my husband against me with absurd lies. Roderick stood up. Victoria, we're having a private conversation. Private? She laughed without humor. About me? About ridiculous accusations this little maid is making up? Isabella stood firm. I'm not making anything up. Peter is being mistreated, and you know it. Victoria advanced into the room. You have no idea what you're doing, girl. Do you really think Roderick will believe you? A nanny he barely knows. Victoria, calm down. Roderick intervened. Isabella has brought legitimate concerns about Peter. As a father, I need to investigate. Investigate? Victoria turned to him. Are you really giving credence to these lies? After everything I've done for you, and this ungrateful brat. The way she referred to Peter did not go unnoticed by Roderick. Something in his eyes changed. Peter is not an ungrateful brat. He's my son. Victoria realized her mistake and tried to compose herself. You know, that's not what I meant. I'm just upset about these absurd accusations. I love Peter as if he were my own son. If that's true, Isabella said, then you won't mind Roderick talking to Peter tomorrow, or us looking at what's in the diary we made. Diary? Victoria frowned, her voice suddenly controlled. What diary? A record Peter and I made. Of everything that happened. Victoria's eyes gleamed with something dangerous. She turned to Roderick, completely changing tactics. Darling, don't you see what's happening? This woman is manipulating Peter against me. She probably wants to take my place. Roderick looked confused, torn. We'll sort this out tomorrow. When we're all calmer, there's nothing to sort out. Victoria almost shouted. Either you believe me, your wife, or this intruder. The ultimatum hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Roderick looked from Victoria to Isabella and back to Victoria. We need to talk to Peter, hear what he has to say. Victoria crossed her arms. Fine, but I want this woman out of my house by then. I don't trust her near my stepson. I can't just fire Isabella based on then. You've already chosen her side. Victoria picked up her purse. I'm going to my sister's apartment tonight. When you come to your senses, call me. With that, she slammed the door. The silence that followed was almost deafening. I'm sorry about that, Roderick said finally, looking exhausted. Don't apologize. I understand it's a difficult situation. Roderick poured himself more whiskey, his fingers trembling slightly. Do you understand what you're asking me to believe? That the woman I married, whom I knew for over a year before the wedding, is abusing my son? I know it's hard to accept, but Peter needs you to believe him. Roderick was silent for a long moment. I'll talk to him tomorrow, and I want to see this diary. Isabella nodded, relieved to have at least achieved that. Please don't tell Victoria about the diary yet. Peter hid it, and is afraid she'll find it. Roderick agreed with a nod. You can go. We'll resolve this tomorrow. Isabella went upstairs with a heavy heart. Passing Peter's room, she quietly opened the door to check on him. The boy was sitting on the bed, hugging his knees, his eyes wide in the dark. Peter, what's wrong? I heard shouting. Is Victoria going to take me away? Isabella entered and sat beside him. No, darling. No one is going to take you anywhere. Did you tell my dad? Yes. He's going to talk to you tomorrow. The boy looked scared. What if he doesn't believe me? He will believe you. Your dad loves you very much. Peter hugged Isabella tightly. Will you stay with me until I fall asleep? Of course. Sitting on the edge of the bed, stroking the boy's hair until he fell asleep, Isabella reflected on the turmoil she had caused. It was the right thing to do, of that she had no doubt. But the consequences were still uncertain. The next morning, Isabella woke to the sound of doors slamming. She rushed out of the guest room and found Victoria in the hallway, suitcase in hand. "What's happening?" "I came to get some things. I'll be gone for a while." Victoria approached, lowering her voice. "This isn't over, Isabella. You have no idea what you've unleashed. Are you threatening me?" "I'm promising. No one messes with my life and gets away with it." Before Isabella could respond, Roderick appeared at the top of the stairs. "Victoria, we need to talk. We have nothing to talk about as long as this woman is here." "Is Peter awake?" Roderick asked, ignoring the comment. "Not yet," Isabella replied. "Good. I want to speak with both of you before I speak with him." He gestured towards the stairs. "In the office, please." They went downstairs in silence. The tension was palpable, like static electricity before a storm. In the office, Roderick looked like he hadn't slept. Deep, dark circles marked his face, and his unshaven beard gave him a haggard appearance. "I spent the night thinking," he began, "and I've decided how we're going to proceed." Victoria smiled triumphantly. "Finally, you've come to your senses. I'm taking Peter to the doctor today, for a full examination." Victoria's smile vanished. "What? Why?" "If he has marks, like Isabella says, a doctor will be able to determine the origin. If there's nothing, then the accusations are unfounded." "This is ridiculous," Victoria exploded. "You're humiliating me based on the words of a stranger." "He's my son, Victoria. I need to be sure." "What about me? My reputation? Our marriage?" Roderick looked genuinely sad. "If you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to fear." Victoria was silent for a moment, her face an unreadable mask. Then she turned to Isabella, her eyes burning with hatred. "You'll regret this." She turned to Roderick. "And you will too, when you find out you threw our marriage away for nothing." With that, she left the room, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and veiled promises of revenge. Roderick collapsed into the chair. "Did I do the right thing?" "You did what you needed to do as a father. Peter deserves to be protected." He nodded slowly. "I've scheduled an appointment with Dr. Evans for this afternoon. He's an old friend, a respected pediatrician. If there's anything wrong, he'll find out." The rest of the morning passed in silent tension. Peter sensed that something had changed, but no one explained what. Victoria did not reappear. At 2 p.m, Roderick, Peter and Isabella left for the doctor's appointment. In the car, Peter held Isabella's hand tightly. "Where are we going?" "To visit a doctor, friend of your dad's," Isabella explained gently. "He just wants to check if you're okay. Will Victoria be there?" "No, son," Roderick replied, observing Peter's reaction in the rearview mirror. "Just the 3 of us." The look of relief on the child's face said more than any words could. Dr. Evans's clinic was in a quiet area of Mayfair. The doctor, a grey-haired gentleman with kind eyes behind his glasses, greeted them with a warm smile. "Roderick, it's been a long time, and this must be Peter." He knelt down to the boy's height. "Hello, champ. I'm Dr. Evans, your dad's friend from college." Peter looked shyly at the doctor, without letting go of Isabella's hand. "And you must be the nanny," the doctor said, extending his hand to Isabella. "Yes, Isabella Caudle. All right, shall we begin? Peter, how about you and I talk a bit alone first?" Peter looked at Isabella, apprehensive. "It's okay," she assured. "Dr. Evans just wants to talk to you. We'll be waiting out here." Reluctantly, Peter followed the doctor into the examination room. When the door closed, Roderick collapsed into a chair in the waiting room, his face in his hands. How did we get to this point? Isabella sat beside him. You're doing the right thing, Mr. Alistair, if it's true. If Victoria really... Gubble quotes. He couldn't complete the sentence. How did I not notice anything? What kind of father am I? The kind who is acting now. Many people would ignore it, deny the problem. Roderick looked up, his eyes red. You know what's worse? Part of me hopes you're wrong, that it's all a misunderstanding. Does that make me a horrible person? No, it makes you human. Isabella hesitated before continuing. May I ask how you met Victoria? At a charity event 2 years ago. I was recently divorced, vulnerable. She seemed so. He let out a bitter laugh. Charming, intelligent, ambitious, the kind of woman who lights up any room. Peter didn't warm to her immediately, but I thought it was just an adjustment phase. And Peter's mother, how did she react to the new marriage? Lucy and I separated amicably. She even seemed relieved when she met Victoria. She thought Peter would have a stable, female figure. Roderick shook his head. How ironic. The conversation was interrupted when the office's door opened and Dr. Evans called Roderick. Can we talk for a bit? Isabella, would you mind staying with Peter in the children's waiting room? It's the door on the left. Isabella found Peter sitting in a colorful room, distractedly flipping through a comic book. When she entered, he ran to hug her. The doctor saw the marks, he whispered. He said he's going to help. Isabella hugged him back, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. You were very brave, Peter. In Dr. Evans's office, Roderick listened in shock to the medical report. The bruises are consistent with pinching and forceful gripping. Some are days old, others weeks. There are older, already yellowish marks too. The doctor adjusted his glasses, his expression grave. Roderick, as a doctor and as your friend, I must tell you, this is unequivocally child abuse. Roderick felt as if all the air had been sucked from the room. Are you absolutely sure? Absolutely. The marks are inconsistent with normal childhood accidents. There are clear finger patterns in some of the bruises. The doctor paused. Peter also told me what was happening. In detail. What did he say? That his stepmother pinched him, squeezed him, pulled him. That she threatened him, saying if he told, he would never see his mother again. That she called him brat, useless kid, burden. The doctor sighed. Roderick, I am legally obligated to report this. It is child abuse. Roderick nodded mechanically. I understand. I'll prepare a detailed report. You'll need it for the legal proceedings. Proceedings? Yes. This is a crime, Roderick. And as a doctor, I cannot simply ignore it. When they left the consulting room, Roderick seemed a different man. The initial shock had been replaced by a cold determination. In the car, on the way home, he finally broke the silence. Peter's son, I want you to know that I believe you, and I promise that Victoria will never hurt you again. Peter, in the back seat beside Isabella, looked at his father with cautious hope. Really? Really? You have my word? Upon arriving home, they found Victoria in the living room, sitting rigidly on the sofa. How was the doctor's appointment? She asked with false casualness. Roderick turned to Isabella. Please take Peter to his room. Isabella took the boy's hand and went upstairs, but not before seeing the murderous look Victoria shot her. Upstairs, Peter ran to retrieve a notebook hidden between his mattress and bed base. The diary. Auntie Isa, I think my dad needs to see this now. Isabella smiled. You're right, Peter. Let's show him. They went downstairs cautiously. They could hear raised voices coming from the living room. ... How dare you accuse your own wife? Based on what? On the word of some ordinary maid? Victoria's voice was sharp. Based on the medical reports, Victoria. Dr. Evans documented all the bruises. Old and new. Bruises? Children get hurt all the time. That proves nothing. There are finger marks, Victoria. Marks from adult hands. Isabella and Peter stopped at the entrance to the living room. Victoria was the first to notice them, her eyes widening at the sight of the diary in Peter's hands. "What is that?" she asked, her voice suddenly tense. Roderick turned around. "What do you have there, son?" Peter walked over to his father and handed him the notebook. "It's our secret diary. Auntie Isa and I made it. It has everything Auntie Victoria did to me." Roderick opened the diary. Each page contained a child's drawing, accompanied by dates and short descriptions written by Isabella. "Got pinched when I cried, locked me in the closet because I spilled juice, squeezed my arm until it was purple because I talked about Mummy." There were dozens of entries, some dating back even before Isabella's arrival. Roderick's face transformed with each page turned. When he finally looked up, there was no longer any doubt or confusion, only a cold, controlled rage. "It's over, Victoria. Get out of my house, now." Victoria looked from Roderick to Peter and to Isabella, like a trapped animal. Then her face changed. The mask completely fell, revealing the fury underneath. "You'll regret this, Roderick. All of you." She grabbed her purse violently. "Do you think it will be easy to get rid of me? I have influential friends. I know all your secrets. I'll destroy you, in court and in the press." Roderick was not intimidated. "Threats only worsen your situation. Dr. Evans has already made the official report. This is a police matter now." "Police?" Victoria laughed, but there was a note of panic in her voice. "Because of a few little pinches. No one will take that seriously. The prosecutor I know will take it very seriously." Roderick took a step forward. "Now get out, before I call the police myself." For a moment it seemed Victoria would attack. Her eyes swept the room, lingering on Peter with such hatred that the boy hid behind Isabella. Then, with a sudden movement, she threw a crystal vase against the wall. "You don't know who you're dealing with. This isn't over." With those words, she left, slamming the door so hard that the pictures on the wall trembled. The silence that followed was broken by Peter, who ran into his father's arms, sobbing. Roderick hugged him tightly, his own tears mixing with his son's. "I'm sorry, Peter. I'm sorry I didn't realize it sooner. For not protecting you." Isabella watched the scene with a heavy heart, feeling both relieved and apprehensive. The immediate battle was won, but the war was just beginning. In the weeks that followed, life in the Alistair mansion transformed. Roderick filed for divorce and a restraining order against Victoria. The case went to the specialized police station, and Peter had to give a statement, accompanied by a psychologist. Victoria's reaction was exactly as she had promised, vengeful and destructive. She hired one of London's most expensive lawyers and began a defamation campaign against Roderick. She spread rumors in business circles, alleging that he had fabricated the accusations to avoid dividing the assets. For Isabella, the revenge came in the form of a silent but equally cruel campaign. Somehow, Victoria found out about her past, about how Isabella had grown up in an abusive family in the Yorkshire countryside, about how she had struggled to get her degree while caring for her sick mother. She began to spread lies to other nanny employers, saying that Isabella was a kleptomaniac, that she had tried to seduce Roderick, that she was emotionally unstable. Within days, 3 job interviews Isabella had scheduled as a backup plan were mysteriously cancelled. Her name was being tarnished in the closed circles of the London elite. "Don't worry about it," Roderick said when Isabella told him. "Your job here is guaranteed. In fact, I want to make it official. Full-time, with a raise and benefits. You saved my son, Isabella. That's priceless." Roderick's gratitude was genuine, and Isabella's presence had become essential for Peter's recovery. The boy, once withdrawn and silent, was starting to smile again. He had therapy twice a week, and slowly, the nightmares began to diminish. One night, while reading Peter a bedtime story, the boy asked a question that caught Isabella by surprise. "Auntie Isa, are you leaving now that Auntie Victoria doesn't live here anymore?" The question was laden with fear. Isabella closed the book and smiled. "No, Peter, I'm not going anywhere as long as you need me. Promise? I promise." Peter hugged her tightly. "I'm happy. My dad is too. Really." "Yes, he smiles more when you're around, like before, when Mummy lived here." Isabella felt her face warm. "Your dad is just grateful for the help with you." Peter shook his head, with that inexplicable wisdom of children. "No, it's different. He looks at you like he looked at the princesses in the movies we watch." Isabella laughed, changing the subject, but Peter's words remained in her mind. 3 months passed since Victoria had left their lives. Autumn arrived in London, painting the trees of Regent's Park Gardens in shades of gold and red. The Alistair house, once a place of tension and fear, now breathed a different air, lighter, warmer. One Saturday afternoon, Isabella watched Peter playing in the garden with his new dog, a caramel-colored stray they had adopted the previous month. The boy ran, laughed, shouted with joy, sounds that, months ago, seemed impossible. "It's incredible how he's changed," Roderick said, approaching with 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Isabella and sat beside her on the garden bench. "Children are resilient," she replied, accepting the coffee with a smile. "Especially when they have the right support, and you were exactly the support he needed." Roderick watched his son for a moment. That I needed too. There was something in his tone of voice that made Isabella avert her gaze, suddenly conscious of the closeness between them. Roderick's woody scent mingled with the aroma of coffee, creating a sense of intimacy that she tried, without much success, to ignore. In recent months, the relationship between Isabella and Roderick had subtly transformed. From employer and employee to allies, accomplices in Peter's protection and recovery, and, gradually, to something more, something unsaid, but increasingly difficult to ignore. Small gestures, prolonged glances, late-night conversations after Peter fell asleep. A silent dance of 2 people trying to respect boundaries that grew more tenuous each day. "How is the case against Victoria?" Isabella asked, changing the subject. Roderick sighed, moving slowly. "The divorce is complicated because she's contesting everything. As for the criminal process for mistreatment, the public prosecutor's office accepted the complaint. But her lawyer is good. He's trying to discredit the evidence and the defamation campaign. I lost 2 important investors. Some friends stopped returning my calls." Roderick shrugged. "But others stood by me. And I gained respect from people who truly matter. I'm so sorry about all this." "Don't be. I've never regretted the decision. Peter is safe. He's happy. That's what matters." As he spoke, Roderick unconsciously covered Isabella's hand with his own. The touch, simple and warm, sent a wave of heat up her arm. Neither of them mentioned the gesture or pulled their hand away. Peter came running up to them, the dog at his heels. "Dad, Auntie Isa, look what Caramel learned to do." He threw a small ball, and the dog ran to fetch it, bringing it back and dropping it at the boy's feet. "Amazing, Peter." "You trained him very well," Isabella praised. The boy smiled, his face lit up in a way she had never seen in the first days. It was as if a light had been switched on inside him. "Can I take Caramel to show Mrs. Seeler?" She said she wanted to see his tricks. Mrs. Seeler was the kind 80-year-old neighbor who always had fresh cookies to be Peter and stories of old Britain that the boy loved to hear. "Of course, son," Roderick replied, "but be back before nightfall." Peter nodded and ran to the side gate that led directly to the neighbor's house, a path that had become frequent in recent months. Roderick and Isabella remained seated, watching in comfortable silence. It was almost like a perfect family scene. The late afternoon sun bathed the garden in golden light, creating an almost magical atmosphere. "Isabella," Roderick began hesitantly, turning to face her, "I've been thinking a lot about the future, about the three of us." Her heart quickened, but before Roderick could continue, his phone rang. It was his lawyer. Roderick's expression turned serious as he listened. "I understand. Yes, I'll be there." He hung up, his face showing frustration at the interruption of the moment. Victoria sped up the process. "She wants the conciliation hearing next week. Is that good or bad?" "Depends. My lawyer thinks she's planning something." Roderick put his phone away, frustration evident on his face. "Whatever it is, we're prepared." The moment had passed, but something remained in the air between them, an unspoken promise, a possible future. On Monday, as Isabella prepared breakfast, she received a call from an unknown number. She answered cautiously. "Hello? Isabella Cordell?" A male voice, professional. "Yes, this is she. This is Raphael Munro, from the International School of London. We received your application for the pedagogical coordinator position." Isabella frowned, leaning against the kitchen counter. "I'm sorry, but I think there's a mistake. I didn't apply for any position." There was a confused pause. "Strange. We received your complete CV with a cover letter a week ago. The board was impressed, and we'd like to schedule an interview." Isabella tried to process the information. She hadn't sent any CV. "May I ask how you received my details?" "By email. Directly to the director. With excellent letters of recommendation." "Letters of recommendation?" "Definitely. Something strange was happening." "Mr. Munro, I appreciate the contact, but I need to check a few things. Can I call you back later?" After hanging up, Isabella remained in the kitchen, confused. Who would have sent her CV, and why? She picked up a mug and poured herself coffee, trying to organize her thoughts. Her education degree was kept in a folder in the guest room, along with all her certificates. No one but her would have access to those documents. The answer came when Roderick entered the kitchen, looking simultaneously guilty and hopeful. He wore an impeccable navy blue suit, ready for another day at the office. But there was something different in his expression, a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. "Good morning. Have you received any calls today?" Isabella crossed her arms. "From the international school." "Anything you want to tell me, Mr. Alistair?" Roderick smiled, awkwardly, running a hand through his graying hair at his temples. "I was going to talk to you first, I swear. But a friend on the board opened the position unexpectedly, and the deadline was running out, ... And you sent my CV to a school. Not just any school. It's one of the best in London." Roderick sat down, gesturing for her to sit too. "Isabella, you have a degree in education, with specializations in early childhood education. Your talent is being wasted as a nanny. I like my job. I like taking care of Peter, I know, and he adores you." Roderick leaned forward, his gaze intense. "But you deserve more. A career, a professional future worthy of your potential." He looked her in the eyes. "The salary is more than double what I pay you." Isabella felt torn. On one hand, the opportunity was incredible, the kind of job she dreamed of when she was still studying at university in Manchester, before her mother's illness forced her to abandon her career plans. On the other hand, the idea of leaving Peter, especially now, broke her heart. The bond they had formed went beyond a professional relationship. It was almost maternal. What about Peter? He just went through a trauma. He needs stability. I thought about that. Roderick seemed to have an answer for everything. The school is 20 minutes from here. You could continue living with us, at least for now. You'd be with Peter every night and weekend. Isabella hesitated, spinning the coffee mug between her hands. The proposal was tempting, but there was something more, something unsaid floating between them. "Roderick, why are you doing this?" He looked away, suddenly vulnerable. The mask of the confident businessman gave way to the man still trying to rebuild his life. "Because you deserve it. Because I want to repay everything you've done for us. Because, ... double quotes. He paused, taking a deep breath, as if gathering courage. "Because I want you to stay in our lives, but not as an employee." The air between them became charged with a different kind of tension. Isabella felt her heart race, her face warming. She knew what those words meant, what that look implied. And as what, then? The question hung in the air, direct and inevitable. Roderick opened his mouth to answer, but before he could utter a word, Peter entered the kitchen, sleepy, dragging his favorite blanket as he did every morning. "Good morning," he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. The moment passed, but something had changed. A door had been left ajar, revealing possibilities that had previously seemed too distant to consider. "Good morning, champ." Roderick stood up and kissed the top of his son's head. "Excited for school today?" Peter shrugged, sitting at the table. "Sort of. There's a math test, and are you prepared?" Isabella asked, pouring milk into the boy's cereal bowl. "You helped me yesterday, remember? I think it'll be fine." Isabella smiled, ruffling his messy hair. "I'm sure it will." Roderick watched the interaction with a soft smile on his lips. It was like this every morning, a domestic routine so natural that sometimes it was hard to remember that Isabella was not, officially, part of the family. "I need to go," he said, picking up his briefcase. "I have an early meeting today." "Peter, behave at school." Isabella, ... double quotes. He hesitated. About the offer. No pressure. With a last meaningful look, he left. In the following days, Isabella went to the school interview. The campus was impressive, modern, airy, with state-of-the-art facilities. As Roderick predicted, the director was impressed with her knowledge and experience. The position would be hers if she wanted unexpected circumstances. "I need to think about it a bit," she told the director, an elegant woman in her 50s. "It's a big change. I understand perfectly. Mr. Alistair told us about your current situation." The director smiled, understanding. It must be hard to leave that charming boy. On the way back, Isabella reflected on the decision she needed to make. The professional opportunity was perfect, but something bothered her. The feeling that, by accepting, she would be crossing an invisible line in her relationship with Roderick and Peter, ceasing to be an employee to be ... what exactly? The question she had asked Roderick in the kitchen still hung unanswered. Walking through the elegant district of Chelsea, where the school was located, Isabella observed the families passing by. Mothers taking children home, couples holding hands. Normal lives, established routines. Could she also have that, after everything she had been through in her childhood? After years dedicated exclusively to a sick mother, could it be possible to start over and have a life of her own? The answer to her doubts came from where she least expected it. Lucy, Peter's mother. She'd returned from New York for a visit and wanted to meet the nanny who, according to her ex-husband, had saved their son. They met at a cafe in Chelsea, an elegant but discreet place. Isabella arrived early, nervous about the meeting. What would Roderick's ex-wife be like? Would she resent her closeness to Peter? 1,000 questions ran through her mind as she waited. Lucy arrived promptly, dressed with unpretentious elegance, linen trousers, a silk blouse, discreet jewelry. She was a beautiful woman, with dark hair and expressive eyes, very much like her son's. "Isabella?" she asked, approaching the table. "Yes, you must be Lucy." Isabella stood up, extending her hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you." To her surprise, Lucy ignored the outstretched hand and hugged her. "The pleasure is all mine," she said, emotional. "I have no words to thank you for what you did for Peter." They sat down, and Lucy ordered 2 coffees. "So you're the famous Isabella?" She smiled, without hostility. "Roderick told me everything. I have no words to thank you for what you did for Peter. I just did what any decent person would do." Lucy shook her head, her pearl earring catching the light. "Unfortunately, that's not true. Many would have looked the other way, or worse, believe the stepmother's version." She took a sip of coffee. "I still blame myself for not noticing anything. The video calls. Peter was different, quieter, but I thought it was just homesickness. Don't blame yourself. Victoria was ... is ... manipulative. She deceived everyone, including Roderick. He was always a good father, you know. Our separation had nothing to do with Peter. We were just ... incompatible. 2 people who respected each other, but went their separate ways." Isabella nodded, understanding. She had heard similar versions from Roderick, but it was comforting to know that Lucy shared the same view, and then he met Victoria. Lucy continued, "So different from me." A shadow of irony crossed her face. "When I met her, I felt relieved. I thought Peter would be in good hands. You couldn't have known." "No, but I should have noticed the signs when I came back to visit. Peter was so withdrawn, ... Double quotes, she shook her head, shaking off the guilt. "But now he's fine. Thanks to you." Lucy observed Isabella carefully, her perceptive eyes assessing her. "When Roderick told me about you, I thought he was exaggerating. But now I understand." "Understand what?" "The way he talks about you. As if you were some kind of angel who fell from heaven." She smiled, with quiet wisdom in her eyes. "He's in love with you, you know." Isabella felt her face burn. "Roderick is my boss, and he just got out of a difficult relationship. Roderick is a man who knows what he wants." Lucy leaned forward. "And by the way, you blush when you talk about him. I'd say the feeling is mutual." Isabella looked away, suddenly interested in her coffee cup. She couldn't deny it, but she also couldn't admit it, not even to herself. Lucy continued, now in a more serious tone. "I came to London for 2 reasons. To see Peter, and to finalize my permanent transfer back to the UK." "You're coming back?" "Yes. I realized I need to be close to my son." "What happened?" "I can't leave him again." She paused. "But I didn't come to complicate things. Roderick and I have a good relationship as separated parents. And from what I see, he's rebuilding his life with you. There's nothing between us, Isabella protested weakly. Yet, Lucy corrected with a smile. Look, I'm not here to judge or interfere. I just want you to know that I don't object. If you make my son and my ex-husband happy, you have my blessing. But I'm the nanny ... What? Titles don't define who we are or what we feel. Lucy took Isabella's hand across the table. At university. I was a scholarship student, a teacher's daughter from the countryside. He, an heir to a construction company. No one bet on us. And even if the marriage didn't last forever, we had good years and a wonderful son. Isabella didn't know how to respond. Lucy's unexpected approval was surreal, almost like a blessing she didn't know she needed. He told me about the school offer, Lucy continued. A great opportunity. How do you know that? Roderick and I talk about Peter regularly. Your name comes up quite a bit. She smiled. Take the job, Isabella. Build your career. But don't run away from what's blossoming between the three of you out of fear or insecurity. The conversation with Lucy deeply affected Isabella. On the way home, her doubts seemed simultaneously larger and smaller. The ex-wife's approval was unexpected, almost surreal. It was as if an imaginary obstacle had been removed, leaving the path clearer. As the taxi drove through the tree-lined streets of Regent's Park Gardens, Isabella reflected on how her life had changed in recent months. From a newly hired nanny, concerned only with doing her job properly, to a woman facing decisions that could completely alter her future, and not just hers, but Peter's and Roderick's too. When she arrived, she found Peter and Roderick putting together a puzzle in the living room. The scene was so domestic, so welcoming, that her heart ached. There was a simplicity in that moment. Father and son concentrated on the task, occasional laughter, a silent complicity. Isabella hesitated at the door, not wanting to interrupt. "Auntie Isa!" Peter spotted her first and ran to hug her. "How's your meeting with my mummy?" She wrapped the boy in her arms, smelling the familiar scent of children's shampoo and chocolate cookies. "It was very good, Peter. Your mummy is an amazing person. She said she's moving back to London." The boy was radiant, his eyes sparkling. "Isn't that great? I'll be able to see her every day." "That's wonderful, darling." Roderick watched the scene with an unreadable expression. There was a tension in his shoulders, as if he were preparing for something. When Peter returned to the puzzle, he approached. "So, how was it, really?" "Surprising. She's very different from what I imagined. Lucy was always fair. That was one of the reasons our divorce was amicable." He hesitated, looking briefly at his son before returning his attention to Isabella. "Did she say anything about ... Yes." Isabella felt her face heat up again. "Why do you ask that?" "Because I know her. And because we talked about you before she called you. You talked about me." Roderick nodded, suddenly serious. "Isabella, I need to be honest with you. When Lucy said she was returning to the UK, the first thing I thought was, now what? How am I going to explain what I feel for my son's nanny?" Isabella's heart raced. There it was, finally said aloud. The words that had danced between them for weeks, never spoken until now. "Roderick, You don't have to say anything now. I know it's complicated. The age difference, the fact that I'm technically your boss, that I just got out of a disastrous marriage, He gave a half smile. "But I also know what I feel, and I think I know what you feel." Peter looked at them curiously from across the room, then returned to his task, as if he already knew what was happening between the adults. There was a silent wisdom in that boy, an understanding that went beyond his age. "What about the school job?" Isabella asked, trying to organize her thoughts. The decision is yours. I want you to be happy, to achieve your professional dreams, but I also want, ... He took a deep breath. I want you to consider a future where we are together, the three of us. The proposal was simultaneously terrifying and wonderful, a new, unexpected path, full of possibilities. Isabella felt a wave of contradictory emotions: hope, fear, joy, insecurity. He looked at the display. Roderick's expression changed. "It's the lawyer again," he answered, walking a few steps away. The call was brief, but when he returned, his face was grim. "What's wrong?" Isabella asked, concerned. "Victoria. She's playing dirty. Very dirty." He looked at Peter, making sure the boy wasn't paying attention. "She's telling the press that I had an affair with you. That's why I fabricated the accusations against her. She's painting a picture of you as a gold digger who seduced the boss to take the wife's place." Isabella paled. "My God, there's more. She got documents about your past, about your father." The ground seemed to open beneath Isabella's feet. Her father. The man who had destroyed her childhood with abuse and violence. The man she fought to leave in the past. How did she? She has money and contacts. She investigated you thoroughly. Roderick seemed genuinely concerned. "Isabella, what does she know?" Isabella sat down, her legs feeling weak. All the warmth and hope she had felt moments before evaporated, replaced by a familiar chill, the same chill she had felt at 16, hidden in a closet while her father tore the house apart in one of his alcoholic rages. "My father. He was violent. He beat me and my mother. When I turned 18, I managed to get my mother out of the house. I reported him." She took a deep breath, fighting back memories she thought were buried. "He was arrested. He served time for domestic violence." Roderick sat beside her, taking her hand. His eyes, usually calm, burned with indignation. "Why didn't you ever tell me? It's not something I'm proud of. And it was in the past. I thought it would stay there." She swallowed hard. "I spent years trying to overcome it, going to therapy, rebuilding my life. My mother never fully recovered. The physical scars healed, but the emotional ones... Well, now Victoria wants to use that against us. She's saying you have a history of lying about abuse to get what you want." Isabella felt as if she had been punched. "That's monstrous. No one would believe that. Desperate people believe what they want to believe. And she's desperate." Roderick squeezed her hand tighter. "Isabella, I won't let her destroy you. Or our family. Our family." The words hung between them, laden with meaning. Peter, who apparently wasn't as distracted as they thought, approached and hugged Isabella around the waist. "Don't be sad, Auntie Isa. Victoria is a liar, everyone knows." Isabella hugged the boy, tears finally escaping. "Thank you, Peter." Roderick hugged them both, forming a protective circle. "We'll face this together. All of us." And at that moment, despite the fear and uncertainty, Isabella knew she was no longer alone. Whatever the future held, they would face it as a family. Not the family she had planned to have, but perhaps the family she was destined to find. Outside the living room window, the sun began to set, painting the London sky in shades of pink and orange. The same sky that had witnessed her arrival months ago, scared, insecure, determined to just do her job. Now, that same sky witnessed the birth of something new, unexpected, and, despite all challenges, deeply hopeful. The divorce conciliation hearing was scheduled for a rainy Thursday in May. Isabella woke up restless, knowing it would be a decisive day for all of them. The storm, raging over London, seemed to reflect the inner turmoil she felt. Since Victoria's accusations came to light, her life had been turned upside down. Some online tabloids had published sensational articles insinuating a scandalous love triangle involving the billionaire businessman, the opportunistic nanny, and a cheated wife. The headlines were ridiculous, but they caused real damage. Comments on social media were cruel. People who didn't even know her, judging her based on lies carefully planted by Victoria. Isabella had received a call from the international school withdrawing the job offer. "We regret it, but we cannot be associated with a public controversy," the director explained, clearly embarrassed. 3 other schools where she had sent her CV had also cancelled already scheduled interviews. Her name and reputation were being systematically destroyed. The night before, her mother had called from Manchester, crying. Someone had sent her one of the defamatory articles. "Naughter, what's happening? It's all lies, isn't it?" The pain in the voice of the woman who had suffered so much broke Isabella's heart. Even from afar, her mother was not safe from Victoria's grasp. Peter, fortunately, was protected from most of the scandal. Lucy had rented an apartment nearby and taken her son to spend a few days with her, away from the media whirlwind. It was best for everyone at that moment. The last thing the boy needed was to hear rumors or see paparazzi photos that now occasionally appeared at the gates of the Alistair house. Isabella dressed carefully for the hearing, a simple navy blue dress, no cleavage, knee-length, a beige cardigan over it. Nothing that could be interpreted as provocative or inappropriate. She tied her hair in a discreet bun, wore minimal makeup. She wanted to look exactly what she was, a serious and dedicated professional, not the seductress Victoria described. "Are you ready?" Roderick asked, entering the kitchen where Isabella was having coffee alone. She looked up. Roderick was elegant in his dark grey suit, but the deep dark circles under his eyes revealed sleepless nights. He also suffered from the situation, although he tried not to show it. "I am. Nervous but ready." Roderick sat opposite her, pouring himself coffee. His movements were tense, restrained, like those of a man carrying an invisible weight. "Isabella, we don't have to do this today. I can go alone. You don't need to face Victoria or the press." She shook her head. "No, we need to end this once and for all, together." Roderick reached across the table, taking her hand. The simple gesture conveyed all the support she needed. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as if they had done it 1,000 times before. "There's something I haven't told you," he said, his voice low and serious. "About Victoria." "What?" "My lawyer got some interesting information. It seems I'm not the first rich husband she's manipulated. There was another one before me. In Manchester." Isabella's eyes widened. "Another husband?" "Yes, a pharmaceutical businessman. She used a different name at the time, but we managed to confirm it's the same person." Roderick took a deep breath. The marriage lasted 8 months. He also had a young daughter. A shiver ran down Isabella's spine. And what happened? He discovered she was embezzling money from his companies. When confronted, she said if he reported her, she would tell everyone he abused his own daughter. Roderick paused, his eyes darkening with contained anger. The man preferred to pay to get rid of her. A millionaire, confidential settlement. My God, Isabella put her hand to her mouth. She's a predator. Exactly. And she's about to meet prey that bites back. The drive to the Westminster courts was made in silence. The rain lashed against the car windshield, creating a curtain of water that distorted the view of the city. Roderick's driver, a discreet gentleman named Anthony, who had worked for the family for years, occasionally looked in the rearview mirror, concerned about the two. "Mr. Alistair," he said finally, "the reporters are already there. At least 3 vans from different broadcasters." Roderick nodded. "Use the side entrance, Anthony. I've already arranged it with security." Isabella felt her stomach churn. The idea of having her face plastered on newspapers and websites, of being pointed at in the street, was terrifying. More than once in the past few days, she had considered simply leaving, going back to Manchester, disappearing, letting the dust settle. But something stopped her. It wasn't just the growing feeling for Roderick, but also the certainty that fleeing would be letting Victoria win, would be abandoning Peter when he still needed her. Westminster Courts was bustling when they arrived. Some photographers and journalists waited at the entrance, but Roderick's lawyer had arranged an alternative entrance. They managed to reach the courtroom unnoticed, avoiding the press harassment. The courthouse corridor was cold and impersonal, with its pale walls and varnished wooden benches. People hurried past, carrying folders and documents, lives in crisis reduced to legal papers. Isabella felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. "Are you all right?" Roderick asked, noticing her paleness. "I am. Just ... double quotes." She took a deep breath. "I never imagined being in a situation like this." Roderick squeezed her shoulder lightly. "It will pass, I promise." Roderick's lawyer, Dr. Evans, waited for them at the courtroom door, a bald, middle-aged man with thin glasses and a serene expression that conveyed confidence. "Good morning," he greeted. Victoria has already arrived with her lawyer. "We are," Roderick replied, straightening his tie. "Excellent. Remember what we agreed. Stay calm. Don't respond to provocations." Dr. Evans looked specifically at Isabella. "Miss Caudle, Victoria will likely try to destabilize you. Don't fall into the trap." Isabella nodded, grateful for the advice. She had mentally prepared for the confrontation, but still felt her heart race as they approached the door. Victoria was already there, accompanied by her lawyer, a severe-looking man in an impeccable suit. She wore a discreet navy blue dress, her hair pulled back, soft makeup, the perfect image of the wronged wife. When she saw Isabella enter beside Roderick, her eyes gleamed with ill-concealed hatred. "So you actually brought her," Victoria said, her voice filled with contempt. "You truly have no shame, Victoria." "Don't start," Roderick warned, his voice controlled but firm. Victoria's lawyer intervened. "Please maintain civility. We are here to resolve, not to escalate the situation." The judge, a middle-aged woman with a firm expression and grey hair, pulled back in a severe bun, entered the room. Everyone rose in respect. She briefly scanned those present before taking her seat. "Good morning. I am Judge Helen Davies. We will begin the conciliation hearing regarding the divorce proceedings between Roderick Alistair and Victoria Monroe Alistair." She adjusted her glasses, looking at the documents in front of her. "The parties have expressed interest in resolving outstanding issues amicably before we proceed with formal litigation. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," both lawyers replied. The judge nodded. "Very well. Who would like to begin?" Victoria's lawyer was the first to speak, rising with a solemn expression. "Your Honor, my client seeks only what is just after being expelled from her marital home based on unfounded accusations. Accusations, I might add, that conveniently arose when Mr. Alistair began an inappropriate relationship with his son's nanny." Isabella felt her face burn. But she maintained her composure, as instructed. Beside her, Roderick visibly tensed, but also remained silent. "Mr. Alistair wishes to avoid public scandal," the lawyer continued, "and my client is willing to be discreet. However, The compensation must be proportionate to the damages caused to her reputation and emotional well-being. Isabella understood immediately. It was blackmail disguised as legal argumentation. Victoria wanted money to stop the defamatory campaign. Roderick's lawyer, Dr. Evans, rose next, adjusting his glasses with studied calm. Your Honor, before we discuss the terms of the divorce, I would like to present some relevant information regarding Miss Victoria's character that directly affects these negotiations. Objection, her lawyer interrupted, standing abruptly. We are here to discuss asset division, not to attack my client's reputation. The judge raised her hand, silencing him. I will allow it, provided it is relevant to the case. Dr. Evans nodded and presented a folder with documents. These are records of Miss Victoria's previous marriage under the name Victoria Oliver in Manchester. We also have here the confidentiality agreement she signed with her ex-husband, businessman Edward Campbell. Victoria visibly paled, her knuckles white from gripping her purse so tightly in her lap. Her lawyer examined the documents with an increasingly worried expression, quickly flipping through the pages as the gravity of the situation became clear. Your Honor, Dr. Evans continued, his calm voice contrasting with the rising tension in the room. We also have here medical reports concerning my client's son, proving the mistreatment suffered. And finally, testimonies from 2 former nannies who worked at the residence before. Miss Cordell. The judge examined the documents carefully, her expression serious. How did you obtain these testimonies? As I understand it, these individuals did not come forward previously. They did not come forward out of fear, Your Honor. Miss Victoria threatened them, but when they learned that a 3rd nanny had reported the abuse, they found the courage to speak. The room fell into tense silence. Victoria whispered furiously with her lawyer, who looked increasingly uncomfortable, repeatedly wiping his sweaty forehead with a handkerchief. The judge looked up from the documents. This substantially changes the situation. Mr. Alistair, Miss Monroe, I suggest you speak privately with your lawyers. We will take a 30-minute break. During the recess, Roderick and Isabella waited in a separate room, a small office with antique furniture and tall windows that let in the grey light of the rainy day. He paced back and forth, tense, while she remained seated, her hands clasped tightly in her lap to hide her trembling. Do you think she'll give in? Isabella asked, if she's smart. The silence. Yes. Her lawyer will certainly advise her to accept a settlement. Otherwise this goes to trial, and she could end up facing criminal charges not only for Peter's mistreatment, but for extorting her previous ex-husband. How did you find that ex-husband? Roderick stopped pacing, leaning against the window. Through the fogged glass, the grey London sky seemed endless. I hired a private investigation agency after she started spreading rumors about you. I thought we needed to know exactly who we were dealing with. He turned, facing Isabella. I found out that Victoria Monroe is just her most recent name. Before that she was Victoria Oliver, and before that Victoria Preston. She changed identities. Not completely, just the surname, taking advantage of marriage changes. She's a social predator, Isabella. She looks for rich men, preferably with young children, pretends to be the perfect partner, and then ... He didn't finish, but it wasn't necessary. Did she do this to other children? Isabella's voice was barely a horrified whisper. Roderick nodded grimly. At least with Edward Campbell's daughter. The girl was 4 at the time. The signs were subtle. The child became anxious around her stepmother, had nightmares, started wetting the bed again. The father attributed it to the adjustment process. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated, just like I did with Peter. Isabella stood up, approaching him. Without thinking, she took his hands. You couldn't have known, Roderick. She deceived everyone. I should have noticed. I'm his father, and it was as a father that you acted when you discovered the truth. That's what matters. Their gazes met, and for a moment the outside world, the lawsuit, the scandal, the accusations, seemed to fade. There were only the two of them, united by something that transcended the circumstances that had brought them together. A knock on the door broke the moment. It was Dr. Evans. Are you ready to go back? Victoria's lawyer indicated they are willing to negotiate. When they returned to the courtroom, the change was palpable. Victoria looked like a defeated person, her mask of confidence completely shattered. Sitting rigidly, she avoided looking directly at anyone. Her lawyer, on the other hand, seemed to have aged 10 years in the last 30 minutes. The judge returned, and everyone stood again. Have the parties had sufficient time to deliberate? She asked. Victoria's lawyer stood up, nervously adjusting his tie. Your Honor, after careful consideration, my client is willing to accept the original terms proposed by Mr. Alistair. She will waive any rights, assets acquired during the marriage, in exchange for the withdrawal of all criminal charges. Roderick looked at his lawyer, who nodded slightly, indicating that it was an acceptable offer. We accept the terms, Dr. Evans said, also standing, with an additional condition. Ms. Victoria must sign a document admitting the mistreatment of the minor Peter Alistair and committing never to approach the child or any family member, including Miss Cordell. Any violation will result in immediate criminal prosecution. There was a moment of tension as Victoria and her lawyer conferred in urgent whispers. Her face alternated between anger and resignation. Finally she nodded, defeated. We accept. The judge seemed satisfied. Very well. The lawyers will draft the agreement and we will return in 1 hour to sign it. As she left the room for the break, Isabella met Victoria's gaze. There was no more arrogance there, only a disturbing emptiness. For a brief moment, Isabella felt something close to pity, not for the woman who had hurt Peter, but for the empty creature Victoria seemed to be, incapable of true love or human connection. You think you won, Victoria whispered as she passed her. But this isn't over. Isabella did not reply. There was nothing to say to someone who saw life only as a game of power and manipulation. Over the next hour, the lawyers worked on the agreement. When everyone returned to the room, the documents were ready. Victoria signed with trembling hands, her face a mask of bitter resignation. Roderick signed next, his shoulders visibly lighter. I declare this conciliation hearing closed, the judge announced. The divorce would be formalized according to the agreed terms. That afternoon, when everything was finally signed, Roderick and Isabella left the courthouse exhausted, but relieved. The rain had stopped, and a pale late afternoon sun appeared between the clouds, creating golden reflections in the puddles that dotted the parking lot. It's over, he said, holding her hand as they walked to the car. It's finally over. And now? Isabella asked, still processing everything that had happened. Roderick smiled for the first time that day. Now we really begin. Without ghosts, without fears. On the way back, they passed Hyde Park. The green, intensified by the recent rain, created an almost unreal contrast with the grey of the city. Roderick asked the driver to stop. Shall we take a walk? We need some fresh air after all this. They walked in silence for a few minutes, feeling the damp breeze on their faces, listening to the bird song that celebrated the end of the rain. Occasionally, their hands touched, until finally Roderick intertwined his fingers with hers. When all this started, he said, I was devastated. I felt I had failed as a father, as a husband, as a man. He stopped, looking at the lake that reflected the now partially blue sky. I never imagined that from the midst of that nightmare, something right would emerge.
Me neither.
Isabella squeezed
When
his
I
hand.
arrived at that house,
I just wanted to do my job, help Peter. I didn't expect ... Double quotes. She hesitated, still unsure how to name what was between them. To fall in love with your boss, Roderick completed with a half smile. Isabella laughed, a light sound that dispersed some of the accumulated tension. It's such a cliché, isn't it? Completely. He turned to face her, suddenly serious. But it's real, Isabella. What I feel for you, what we've built together, you, me, and Peter, is the most real thing I've ever experienced. I'm scared, she admitted, of what people will say, what they'll think. We just went through a scandal, and ... double quotes, and we'll face whatever comes. Together. Roderick touched her face gently. If you want to. Isabella closed her eyes for a moment, feeling his touch. When she opened them again, the answer was clear in her gaze. I do. 3 months later, on a sunny August afternoon, the garden of the Alistair house was unrecognizable. Colorful lanterns hung from the leafy trees. Tables covered with white tablecloths spread across the immaculate lawn, and a small altar of flowers had been set up under the property's oldest jabberty-cabber tree. The garden's transformation had been the work of Lucy and Isabella's mother, who became unlikely allies and quick friends. The idea of an intimate and simple outdoor wedding had come from them, a suggestion that caught Isabella by surprise, but which seemed perfect to mark the new beginning. The guest list was small, close family, a few loyal friends who had stood by Roderick during the scandal, Peter's teachers, the psychologist who accompanied him. There was no need for an extravagant celebration. The important thing was the authenticity of the moment. Peter, elegant in a navy blue suit that matched his father's, ran among the guests with Carmel at his heels. The boy was radiant. The last few months had been a true healing process. With regular therapy, the constant support of Isabella, Roderick, and Lucy, and the certainty that Victoria would never approach him again, Peter had returned to being a happy and confident child. Lucy, sitting in the first row of chairs, chatted animatedly with Isabella's mother, who had moved to London after her health improved. The two women had developed a relationship of mutual respect that surprised everyone. It was as if both understood, without words, that Peter's well-being was the absolute priority. "Nervous?" Lucy asked, approaching Isabella, who was watching everything from the window of the guest room, now her room. "Terrified," Isabella admitted, adjusting the simple wedding dress they had chosen together. It was delicate lace, ankle-length, 3/4 sleeves, elegant without being ostentatious. "It's normal." Lucy smiled, carefully adjusting Isabella's veil. "I was nervous too at my wedding to Roderick. And back then, he wasn't the powerful businessman he is today. We were just two students in love." Isabella looked at her with curiosity. "Isn't it strange, seeing your ex-husband remarry? Not when I know he's with the right person." Lucy shrugged. "Roderick and I had our time. It was good while it lasted. We raised Peter, who is the best part of both of us. But we moved on." She took Isabella's hands. "The three of you deserve this happiness. After everything you've been through." The sound of soft music began to play in the garden. It was the signal. "Time to go," Lucy said, hugging her quickly. "Roderick must be having a fit downstairs by now." Isabella took a deep breath and went downstairs, feeling her heart pounding against her chest. At the foot of the stairs, Peter waited with a small bouquet of wildflowers, daisies and sunflowers, Isabella's favorites. "Auntie Isa, you look beautiful," he said, his eyes shining with admiration. "Can I call you Mum after today?" Tears threatened to ruin Isabella's makeup. "You can call me whatever you want, my love. Mommy said it's okay. That I can have two mums, because one lives in my heart and the other in my house." Isabella hugged the boy, moved by the wisdom of that child who had been through so much. "Your mummy is an amazing woman, Peter." Peter offered his arm like a perfect miniature gentleman. "Then let's go. Daddy is waiting in the garden." Under the golden late afternoon light, filtering through the leaves of the Jabba tree, Roderick waited at the small altar. He wore a light suit, no tie, informal but elegant. When he saw Isabella walking down the improvised aisle of flower petals, with Peter by her side, his face lit up with the purest love. The ceremony was conducted by a justice of the peace, a longtime family friend. Formal words mingled with moments of spontaneity and genuine emotion. When it was time for the vows, Roderick spoke first. "Isabella, you entered our lives at the darkest moment. When I couldn't see the path ahead, you emerged as a light. You've not only saved my son, but you saved me too. You taught me to trust again, to believe in true love. I promise to honor that trust every day of our life together." Isabella, with tears in her eyes, replied, "Roderick, I never imagined that by accepting a job I would find a family. You and Peter showed me that love can be born from the most unexpected circumstances, that the strongest bonds are those forged in hardship. I promise to be by your side in all moments, building happy memories that overcome any past pain." Peter, who was holding the rings, passed them to his father when asked. The rings were simple, white gold, without ostentation, exactly as Isabella had requested. They represented not status or wealth, but the pure and simple commitment of two people who had found love when they least expected it. When the justice of the peace officially declared them married, Peter was the first to applaud, followed by all the guests. There was genuine joy in the air, a celebration not only of the union between Roderick and Isabella, but of the victory of a family that had faced adversity and emerged stronger. At the party that followed, guests enjoyed a simple but delicious banquet, prepared by the family's longtime cook, Mrs. Carman, who had known Roderick since he was single. British music played in the background, an eclectic selection that reflected the couple's varied tastes. Peter did not leave the couple's side for a minute, as if he feared that happiness might escape if he didn't watch it closely. He had actively participated in the wedding preparations, giving opinions on the decoration, the food, even Isabella's dress. At one point, when night had fallen and the colorful lanterns shone like suspended stars among the tree branches, Roderick pulled Isabella and Peter to a quieter corner of the garden. "I have a surprise for you too," he said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. "What is it, Dad?" Peter asked, curious. "Open it and see." Peter opened the envelope and pulled out 3 plane tickets. "Disney World," he shouted, jumping with excitement. "We're going to Disney," Isabella laughed, hugging the boy. "It looks like we'll have a family honeymoon." "It wouldn't be a real honeymoon without Peter," Roderick replied. "We're a complete package now." Peter looked at the tickets with shining eyes. "When are we going?" "In 2 weeks. I've arranged everything. Hotel, park, tickets, even a special backstage visit." "You didn't have to do that," Isabella said. "I wanted to give a special gift to the 3 of us. A new beginning, away from everything we've been through." Roderick wrapped his arms around both of them. I can't imagine anything better. Later, when most of the guests had left and Peter slept exhausted in his grandmother's lap, Roderick and Isabella danced slowly under the colorful lanterns. Brazilian Waltz by Edu Lobo played softly, creating an intimate atmosphere in the now almost empty garden. "Happy?" he asked, kissing her forehead. "More than I ever thought possible." She rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Sometimes I still can't believe we made it this far. It's been a long journey," he agreed. "From the moment you opened that door to Peter's room and defended him, until today. You know what's ironic?" Isabella said, looking into the eyes of the man who was now her husband. "If Victoria hadn't been so cruel, the three of us would never have met like this." Roderick reflected for a moment, his face softened by the yellowish light of the lanterns. "Perhaps that's true. But I prefer to believe that, somehow, we would have found our way to each other. That it was meant to be. Fate?" she teased, smiling. "Call it what you want." He kissed her softly, a touch of lips full of promises. "I call it our story. And it's just beginning." At the edge of the garden, Peter watched the couple with Carmel by his side. The boy had woken from his nap and crept out to see the adults dancing. He stroked the dog's head, which wagged its tail contentedly. "They look happy, don't they, Carmel?" he whispered. The dog barked softly, as if agreeing. Peter smiled, satisfied. His family was finally complete. Not in the way he expected, nor in the way anyone could have predicted, but in the right way. He now had two mothers who loved him, one who gave him life, and another who risked everything to protect him. He had a father who had learned to see beyond appearances, and he had Carmel, the furry friend who never judged him. Life, Peter was learning, was full of surprises, some painful, others wonderful. The important thing was to have the courage to face the former and an open heart to embrace the latter. And now, looking at his father and his new mother dancing under the colorful lights, Peter knew they had both courage and heart. More than enough for the three of them. The night advanced over London, and as the stars appeared in the sky, a new family celebrated its beginning. The scars would remain, on Peter, on Roderick, on Isabella, but now they were marks of overcoming, not just pain. Together, they had transformed a story of mistreatment and betrayal into a narrative of rescue, healing, and love. And perhaps that was the greatest victory of all. End of story, dear listeners. We hope Isabella, Roderick, and Peter's story has touched your hearts. To follow more narratives that explore family bonds, overcoming adversity, and new beginnings, we have prepared a special playlist with equally moving stories. Find it by clicking the link on the left. If this story stirred emotions in you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. We bring new stories daily that explore the complexity of human relationships and the strength of true love. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe in second chances in love? Have you witnessed a family rebuilding after difficult times? We look forward to reading your experiences and reflections. Until the next story.